Knitting can be very satisfying, and today I'm going to show you some simple techniques that we're going to use to make a headband. I'm going to cast on 18 stitches. I've already made this calculation and it will become apparent why 18 once I've shown you the pattern that we're going to create together. This is the end. Allow some length. Create a little loop. Play around with how you're going to hold your yarn and needles. It's hard to explain, plus everyone's a little bit different. Find the tension that you need. I tend to hold it like this. So currently this at the front is our tail. I'm going to cast on 18 stitches. This is already one. At the beginning I'm tightening after every loop. Here we are, here are our 18 stitches. I've cut off the excess tail so it doesn't get in our way. The reason I cast on 2 needles is something my mum showed me when I was a kid. What we are going to do now is hold on to one needle and pull the other one out. And can you see there's this, these are really loose. I suppose maybe when you're new, when you're a kid, you tend to make your first stitches really tight, and then it's really difficult to maneuver them. And so I guess if it helps you at this stage, that's just one way to work with your cast on row. So what we're going to do is knit our first row. I know you already know how to do a knit stitch and how to do a purl stitch. I want to show you now what they look like. Here's something I made earlier. I'm going to use this as an example. So if we're looking at this, that's nothing but knit stitches. So front side, if you will. And the outside of that, the other side of that, looks like this. It looks, you can knit, sometimes you can knit this like that on purpose. I'm sure you've seen designs like that. And knitting really is a combination of knit and purl like this. You can see here we knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. And when we move on and create a sort of similar design like this for our headband, that's all that really is. It's still a combination of a knit and a purl in an organized way to create a pattern. Another thing my mum taught me to do is at the beginning of every row we are going to simply slip the first one, and we're not loop, and we're not gonna knit it. I'm not gonna explain why, perhaps because I don't understand enough. It's something to do with keeping it tidy, but I don't think it's essential. But let's just do what Mum said. So I'm just going to have a little think and organize my work. Actually, I am just going to knit the first row, and then we're going to organize our pattern and start building on it. So sorry, it's just 1, 2, some quite a lot of tension on here if I need it, and enough for me to slack off. So here I slack it off, tighten, slack it off. So whoops, let's put that back. And one last piece of advice from my mom is to, when you always slip the first stitch, you always purl the last one. No matter what the pattern says, for now, at this stage, let's say. We're just gonna sling, oh, here we go, sling this working yarn and knit like that. This is a purl. I'm going to come out like this. Okay, so now we have a bunch of knit stitches, and the other side is that bobbly purl side. To keep in this pattern, because this is gonna kind of be a background, and we're just going back and forth. We'll cast on, we've knitted our first row, and now we're gonna, so that's that, we came to the end. Now we're going to turn our work and work like this, but we're on the inside out, we're on the back now, so we are going to purl all the next back. So actually we're going to slip the first one, as we always do, and purl all the way to the end, including the last purl stitch. You'll get into the rhythm of this. So what I want to create is a sort of mini scarf, and then we'll sew the ends of it together, and it's gonna, the fabric is gonna grow like this. These are our foundation rows. Fantastic, I'm sure you know how to do that. And now I want to organize to what style I'm going to dedicate each strand, if you will. So what I want to do is create a band where we have a cable stitch. This is called a cable 4. Because it works on 4 stitches here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I want for my overall pattern is one of these, a little thing like this, and another one of them below, right? And then I counted a couple of extra stitches either side. So if you do the maths, first of all, what I want to show you is, of course, it's the contrast that makes these patterns pop. As you can see, there is a background of purl stitches immediately either side of this cable. So we'll say that, so that counts for 6 stitches altogether. 6 here, 2 here, 6 more, and 2 extra either side. So 6 and 6, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and that's how we came to our 18 cast on. Okay. I might as well mention now that how I've said knitting is made up of knits and purls in various combinations. Cabling, which is this creation of beautiful patterns, is made up of the technique of switching the order of the stitches. This will become obvious and apparent, and I realize I'm using some new terminology, but I will keep using it, and it will all make sense. I will show you very soon, when we get to it on our headband, how to switch the order of those of the stitches we're making when I show you how to make when we make these together. And then you'll have the tools to experiment with more complicated and beautiful patterns. It really is all the same technique, and I'm going to show you another piece that I'm currently working on that might look like too much, but actually it's very much the same technique. We will be grab a pen and paper as well, because you will need to make notes to keep where you are, to know your place in your work. They're not essential, but they're helpful. And after you've done this sort of technique a bunch of times, you will be able to see as the work grows, without necessarily having to even refer to your notes, where to start, where to switch these stitches. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to slip first one. There. All right, so that's the first two. That's, we're going to frame the whole work. Then I'm gonna purl and purl. Now I'm gonna keep this yarn at the back. Okay, so now we've come to the 4 stitches that are gonna create our pattern. Here they are. And just to show you, this is gonna be our foundation ones. This is going to be our purls. This is going to be our other 4. Oh dear. Slightly messed up. Need to recalculate something. Actually, it's okay. What we'll do. So, frame, purl, cable, purl, knit 2, purl, cable. Excuse me while I work this out. Okay, this is why it's good to plan, and it's a good habit to get into, because what we're doing now is simple, but it's when exactly this planning falls apart, when we do something complicated, like this. It will be pretty obvious if you mess up, and it's difficult to undo, and in fact that piece of work does have a mistake on it, so when we get to it I will show you what happens when things go wrong. So the foundation stitches, I'm going to account for all our 18 stitches on this little piece of paper. We've already established this is our framing, so our sort of framing of the band. And then, so we're going to knit. It's going to be a purl 1 here, which is going to be the frame for the cable, C4B, and I will explain that in a minute, what these codes mean. That's where I know we're going to have our 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, whose order we're going to switch. maybe every 5th row or so, and then we're going to frame that with another purl. So that makes it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Same thing over here. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Perfect. Sorry if that doesn't make sense. It will become clear. I just needed to make myself a little map as we move along. Knit, knit, purl. So here we are. We're gonna, there is the simple cable that comes in 2 variations, C4B, cable for back, or you could say C4F, cable for forward. And this is what that means. We're going to work with these next 4 stitches now. So how we've knitted so far has been in order. You know, I keep talking about switching the order of how we knit something. 1, 2, 3, 4, and on and on and on to just create a plain fabric. Now what we're going to do is we're going to skip these 2 and we're going to knit these 2 first. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to come back to it. And this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to use a cable needle to slip these onto here, and we're just going to let go. We're just going to put them behind our work, pretend, just leave them alone, forget them for a minute. Okay, and then we can go knit that one and knit that one. And actually this particular needle you can knit straight off it. You can, but what I'm going to do is something that I'm used to. I'm going to just place these, a little bit fiddly, back onto there. Fiddly, but worth it. So, okay, it's a bit, you might not know how it might feel, very different, very strange, but this is indeed how you do it. And then we're going to knit that and knit that, and we have, it's the same amount of stitches, so we've knitted those 4, but we switched the order that we've knitted them. So what we just did is C4B. Okay, so we're going to do this a bunch of times. So for now I'll move on. We're going to purl one, and that frames our little cable. Knit, knit, purl, and we've come to the next C4B, as it were. Now I've mentioned there's a cable for back and cable for front. You can do either, just, I'm going to stick with, usually I do forward, right, which means that you slip these 2 and you keep it forward while you knit that, right? But whichever you choose, make sure you stick with it. I will show you an example now what happens when you stop paying attention to your notes and just, you know, keep going for hours and then realize when it's way too late that you can't undo this. So what we're going to do is carry on with our design. Like I said, it's a little bit fiddly at first, but everybody will get a hang of it in their different way. So I'm not going to bother explaining. There is it's not that bad. You get used to it. Okay, so we're going to knit one, bring these 2 stitches back. Sometimes you need to kind of like make sure you don't lose your work. Push that through, let it go. Put that back on the needle is how I do it. You can knit off that needle if you like, straight off it. Done. Whoopsie. Done. Then you frame it, and now all we have left is our last 2 little frames, but I'm going to do it mum way. It's not the end of the world if you forget this, if I'm going to purl the last stitch, just because it's a general rule. Not sure why. So this won't, the pattern won't emerge just yet, but for now this is important. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to turn our work around, slip that off, and I can see here this is a pearl. We're doing the background, the other side, the behind. This bit now, obviously, yeah. I've turned our work around, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to purl what I see there, but you see, oh, but we've come, why is there a knit there? It's because we want it to be a purl on the front. So this is what we're looking at. Yeah, so say this is the frame, then we do a purl, then we do the cables. So when we're knitting on the other side, when we have to knit what we see, what we come across, so that it keeps in pattern and it makes sense as it emerges. So the ones that are purl on this side, in between, just for contrast, you can see stick out as knits on this side. All right, so I hope that makes sense. And so we just knitted that one on the background, on the behind. One, purl, 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 and I've come across another knit. We're going to knit that one. And even in my complicated designs, this principle is the same. I don't need to look at what my notes say or anything like that. I see, oh, there's a purl on the background there. I'm going to purl it. I'm going to purl it. And actually what I write in my notes, if I need to, when I'm planning the rows, I will write as is. I'm not going to write out individual whatever. I'm just going to say as is. So as it is. I come across a stitch and it's a knit, so I knit it. And the next one, what is it? It's a purl, so I purl it. And I'm going to purl the last one, no matter what it is. Okay. So let's just carry on for a bit. Obviously we can't be twisting and switching the order of the stitches every single one, every single row. It's going to look like a mess. You need to establish when you're going to do it. So how often you're going to do it. So let's count that one that we just did as our first row. And as we know, we are going to just repeat the same pattern, right? So we're only going to do an X amount of rows, and we're just going to do it over and over again, and it's going to create a long fabric with a pretty pattern on it. So we just done one first time, and then row 2 we could say was as is. Call it what you want, but that's our behind row. And now we're going to be on that we just did on the inside out, right? So this is, and now 3 we're going to do plain, because we can't just keep twisting and twisting, can we? So plain, and then 4 is going to be as is, which is going to be all pearls on the back. No, it won't. We're just doing a little frame, actually. Excuse me. So anyway, let's just do it. Slip that, knit, and then I can see a purl, and now we're going to knit our 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I see a purl again, and now I'm doing that 2 middle panel. And then I purl so that we can see the distinction. And I'm going to knit my cable just through, just so. here. I see a purl, I purl it. I see a knit, I knit it. Knit. Okay. See how this is gonna go. So what did we just do? We just did as is, or plain also means as is, right? So front, back, front, we as plain, we did the back, and now we are on 5. And then I think it's going to be in row 5. That is when I'm going to twist again. That's when I'm going to do the row that I'm going to do where our C4 backs, the two of them again. And you will see the pattern that will begin to emerge. Here we go. We've come to the 4 stitches that are our pattern. Organize your work. Fiddly at first, but you'll learn how to hold it. Let me just attempt to knit straight off this needle. So it's time for the second 2 stitches. Boom. Not bad. Sorry, I'm not sure if I got that on the camera. Let me carry on. Just drop that where it is. Boom. Purl. And if you wanted to knit along, you don't have to. You'll see what will happen. You don't need to do it every 5th row. If you do it every 12th row, it will just look a bit different. But I think just for the sake of the exercise and practice, let's bash a bunch of these out. And then we can proceed and progress. Oh no! Well, isn't that interesting? I absolutely made the same mistake with cabling back or forward. So I think I was supposed to cable back and I didn't. I cabled forward, and it's not the first time I made that mistake. This is what it looks like on a slightly different cable. The middle bit is as it should be. This is a braid, and we're not dealing with 4, we're dealing with 6 cables at a time. In fact, we're dealing with 9, but you can see the thickness of them is 6. So it's not just twisting, it's twisting in different places and different rows. But you can see where, and the row where I stopped paying attention and did exactly what I just did on our headband, was take the stitches off on the cable needle, and instead of putting them back behind our work, as my notes say, I just flung it forward because I've never done this and filmed at the same time. So, perfect example. So let's undo that. It's very easy with this yarn. It's pretty thick and keeps its shape. Nope, can't do it. Have to put it back on the needle. That's better, that works for me. Try and keep the tension of the yarn. Just if you feel you're not holding it right because you're not used to it yet, just check yourself. Okay, so I did this one really loose, but if you do them all really loose, you'll end up with big old holes. So just tighten yourself up there as you go along. Oh, another liberal one. So there we go. So that was, we've done that, and we've done the reverse of it. So basically we've done, this is 5 is the same as row 1. So we've done 1 again, and we've just done the inside out bit, shall we say. And now we're just going to do the plain row as just as it is. So I want to leave you with a couple of things as we carry on doing this, repeating rows 1 to 5 until we have a desired length. There are great designs you can think of yourself, combining very simple techniques. Once you become confident or bored with them, you will have a great base to advance to slightly more complicated designs, such as the staghorn, which is one of my favorites. To make it easier, make notes, even in your own understandings, you know, interchanging technical terms, you know, twist, slip, just use your own words, just make your own notes for how you understand it at the beginning. And what it's your own code, but there is a proper written out code that is very self-explanatory. So when we introduce, when anomalies are introduced in new techniques and patterns, you'll be able to see where they fit in very easily. The written code for something like this looks like this. So when I picked it up, I was familiar with most of them and just had to look a couple up. And you just got to keep your place but you know, start on the big project when you're ready, when you've done a bunch of examples. Yeah, like I said, just about paying attention where you are. So let me know how you get on, and once you're confident with handling the fabric you're creating and can read your work, that is, know what's coming up in your next row, or indeed in the same row, by checking what you've already done, what's on your needles in front of you, then we will move on to twist as opposed to cable stitch, which will unlock many great patterns like this one for you to try. Have fun. All right, so hopefully you've gotten this far with me. Perhaps yours looks slightly different or a lot different. That will depend on the material used, meaning not just the yarn. You might have different thickness of the yarn, different thickness of the knitting needles and the combination, and also different colors and patterns will have a different effect. And some are better than others, work different on different designs. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Also, we want to say thanks to Mum now, because if you did follow along with me, you will have very neat edges that look like a braid and tidy stitches right along the side. So they just sort of manifest if we purl the last one of the row and slip the first one of the row. I also quickly wanted to mention cable needles themselves. This is the one we used here. As you can see, it's pretty similar to the size of our main knitting needles. This is the one I used for my other project that I've shown you. It's much thinner actually, and I use it like this, and you slip it off. You let the stitches sort of come up in here and let it go. Alternatively, you can use a crochet hook, another knitting needle, or even sometimes something like this, like a pen top. But if we got this far, you must have found something. Alright, so let me show you how to cast off at the end. We've reached our desired length. It doesn't matter if you're on the back or the front where you finish. Just wrap it around your head once. Slip the first one, and we're just ignoring what these columns were before. We are just gonna knit. So I see this one's purl, we're just gonna forget that, we're not looking at that anymore. We're gonna knit that one, pick up the previous one, feed it through. So we are always going to have just one loop on the end there. This is how we're going to close a row. We're going to knit. We have two. I'm going to turn it into one. Knit. So now you're getting a feel for what it's like to knit with your other hand, because you are actually, so here we're taking the loop with our right hand needle, and here we are folding it over, but this left one is your primary tool. And you can see how it's closing up halfway there. use your hand. Use your tip of your finger to assist if you need to. Everyone's hands are a little bit different, so and last one. And now I just let that through. Give it a little bit of slack. Chop it. We're done with the yarn ball. And here I've got I've actually got a tapestry needle. See what sits better. Probably gonna overlap it like this. Not too tight, you can always tighten it. Have a little test, have a little check. Fine by me. And the way I would cut the secure the tail would be just to poke it just anywhere you have a loose bit, and then back through that loophole you just made. Tighten that up. You can even do that again. I'll leave that up to you. I'll chop it here. Secure it some more. You can cut off the loops. And that leaves us with final touches. I like to go to charity shops and ask for their button selection. They'll have something behind the till, and if you are looking for needles, crochet hooks, ask in charity shops. They will always have something behind the till, and you'll have a little bit of loose yarn, and pop a button on there, and there you go. Hope you enjoyed the videos. Well done.